We just had about a magnitude 5.5 earthquake up near Plumas County. It was a pretty shallow earthquake, and I understand that there was shaking felt as far down as Sacramento. So we can have earthquakes at various depths. So some are really, really deep and some are more shallow. This particular one happened it was very close to the surface of the earth. And so that just meant that I feel some of the shaking may have been a little bit stronger for people who were near to that earthquake epicenter.
Now, are you familiar with that area at all? Is it normal for that area to have earthquakes?
We've definitely seen earthquakes of about that size in that area before. There was, I think it was, I'm going to say 2013, there was about a magnitude 5.7 up in that area. So it's not unusual for us to see earthquakes up there. They tend to not happen quite as frequently as we see in other places, but it was a pretty good size earthquake up there. So we have automatic programs that go in and they look at what's coming in from our waveforms and they say, well, we think it's about this big. Then we have human people who are on duty who go and adjust the program, adjust it, make it look a little bit better. And so sometimes that number can change a little bit. We might update the location, the depth, and that can in turn change the magnitude estimate. But what we can say as far as right now, we know it seems to be about a magnitude 5.5.
And not to feel like a doomsayer here, but will there be more? And should we be concerned about those that come?
There's always a possibility that a larger earthquake may happen after an earthquake, right? We never know. We never know if this is a foreshock until there is another earthquake. So I can't tell you whether there will or will not, but there's always a small probability that there may be another earthquake that happens after this one. Chances are this was it. We might see some aftershocks happening in the area, so it tends to be smaller earthquakes. That's we're pretty sure about that. But again, whether there'll be a bigger earthquake, we don't know. The great thing about an earthquake like this is that it can serve as a reminder that we do live in earthquake country. It's great to be prepared. Make sure you got your earthquake safety kit. If you haven't already, you can download myshake. I know that a number of people got an alert from our cell phone app, myshake, which will deliver those earthquake early warning alerts to your cell phone. So if you haven't done that already, you can get prepared in that way as well.
Always love the plug. But I want to ask about the aftershocks as well. How long is it going to be normal to be seeing aftershocks happen? Is it normal to feel one maybe like a week afterward, or is there a certain time period where they come in?
We see those aftershocks decaying with time. So today we probably see some aftershocks happening, especially the smaller magnitudes. That's pretty normal. And then over time, the frequency and the size of those earthquakes will decrease. This wasn't a huge earthquake. Again, 5.5. That's not really, really big. So we'll expect to see some smaller aftershocks, I would expect, in that area for a little while, and it'll taper off pretty quick, I would imagine.
And for a point of clarification, when we say 5.5 is not that big, it still felt like 100 miles away. How is that not?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. 5.5. I would call it a moderate earthquake. Something like we saw again in Ridgecrest, that was a 7.3. So that was a significantly larger earthquake. We have a logarithmic scale. So every time you go up in numbers, it's actually a pretty significant increase in the amount of energy that's being released. So 5.5, we're going to call that a moderate earthquake. People will definitely feel it. If you're within 100 miles, it seems like people are definitely feeling some shaking there. But again, larger earthquakes, like what we could expect to see somewhere else, for example, on the Hayward Fault, we can expect to see bigger earthquakes than that. So I'm again going to say this is a moderate earthquake. Doesn't mean that it wasn't scary. For sure, it can be startling if you're not ready for it. But again, I would say this was a moderate earthquake.
Now, you spoke a little bit about the myshake app. Can you give me a little bit more of a primer on it for people who aren't familiar with it? What exactly is it?
Sure. So myshake is an app that can deliver earthquake early warning alerts. So we have the West Coast wide shake alert earthquake early warning system. That's what I work on. So that system will estimate where the earthquake is and how big it is, and it will do it really, really fast. So fast that we can actually get that alert out to people with a general estimate of how big the earthquake is before they feel shaking. And so that's why if you're down in Sacramento, but the earthquake starts way up it was almost near Lassen, the amount of time that you get between when we send out that alert and when you feel shaking I think it was up to like 30 seconds. So it's a significant amount of time that you might get So you can, again, drop cover and hold on, get ready for that earthquake shaking to start.
A bit of an odd question, but we can predict when big storms are going to come in, when flooding is going to happen. Oddly enough, earthquakes kind of fall into that wildfire category. I know that might sound weird, but it's when it comes to a wildfire, it just happens, and that's when we know where it is. That's when we know when it's happening. And the earthquake, it just feels the same way. Is there any reason why we can't get a better idea of, I guess, predicting an earthquake?
So unfortunately, we cannot predict when and where the next earthquake will happen. Like if I could, I would be really rich. I'd be in very, very, very high demand because everybody wants to know like when it's the next earthquake. And unfortunately, it's just one of those things that, as far as we know, at this point in time, there are no consistent detectable signals or anything that we can see that will tell us when the next earthquake will happen. We may see increased seismic activity in some area, but sometimes we don't. So again, there's nothing consistent that we can use to predict earthquakes.
And I know everyone always asks this one, so that's why I save it toward the end. Everyone's always worried about the big one. Is this the precursor? Is California due for the inevitable big one?
So unfortunately, we can't tell when or where the next really big earthquake will happen. This could be a foreshock to a larger earthquake, or it may not. We really cannot tell. What we do know is that, again, this can serve as a reminder to be prepared for the next big earthquake. Statistically speaking, yes, the Bay Area particularly is overdue for a large earthquake. We know that based on historical records of when earthquakes have happened in the past and how much time has elapsed since the last big earthquake over here. But again, we don't know when the next one will happen. Could be tomorrow, could be 30 years from now, but we do know that we do live in earthquake country and it's good to be prepared for the next big one.
Right. Angie, that wraps up all my questions. But if there's anything else I didn't touch on, anything else you think is important that maybe you don't get to say very often, feel free to say it.
Again, I think people should download myshake. It's a really great way for people to be prepared because, again, wouldn't it have been nice to know that you were about to feel shaking?